Namaste. Aloha, my name is Janapati Das, and we are going to engage in another Krishna story today. Please accept my most humble respects. Let me offer my respectful obeisances to my Guru Dev and to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who has translated this Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto of the Krishna book and purported upon it so nicely. We just had yesterday the celebration of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's appearance day, which is the day after Krishna's appearance day, known as Janmashtami. Just to say a little bit about Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, because I offer my respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet, and am eternally grateful for his mercy upon us. For when he was a young man, he was instructed by his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, to bring Krishna consciousness to the West. And until he came, there really wasn't any Krishna. People didn't know about Krishna in the United States, or maybe a little bit in Europe, but maybe not. Some other Mayavadi yogis had come to the U.S. to teach Mayavadi philosophy, but the true philosophy of bhakti was not brought until A.C. Bhaktivedanta came to the United States, took a freight in his 70s, ticket into the east coast of the United States in the middle of winter with only one contact and very little money. While he was traveling over, he had a heart attack and almost left his body. And he started out coming into the dead of winter and amazingly was able to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, not just in the United States, and much to the chagrin of a lot of his god brothers, because they didn't feel that Americans or Westerners were so degraded that they would be somehow pollute the teachings of Vaishnava bhakti, which is really ridiculous, because bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness, is so powerful that it can change the heart of the most fallen. It never is contaminated by material contamination. So we offer our respects to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and without which my Guru Dev would not have come in contact with him, and I would not be here today to teach you. So let's chant. people. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So welcome back. We are going to read on. And if this is your first time, feel free to subscribe in my channel, which helps the algorithm increase so that more people can hear about Krishna. You can also like and make comments, please. Please make comments or comments on other people's comments. It's okay. We're here to discuss Krishna Katha, the pastimes of Krishna. And the pastimes of Krishna are eternal. They're eternal and ever existing and ever fresh and ever new. They never get tired. When we have an affinity for hearing about heroes and exciting fantasy stories and movies and whatnot, and this is what we have, this affinity because we are naturally, as a spirit soul, attracted to the pastimes of Krishna. But because of our forgetfulness, we tend to put our desire for such adventures and admiring heroes onto ordinary men or even fantasy figures like Marvel or whatever, Harry Potter or something. And this doesn't help us spiritually in any way. But we can listen to the stories of Krishna, the stories of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and it's ever fresh, it's ever new, and it's ever revealing. So we are going to continue. Uddhava, the great devotee of Krishna, was sent to Vrindavan to relay a message to the Gopis and to the residents of Vrindavan about Krishna. And we had been reading about how Uddhava went to deliver the message directly to the Gopis, and of course Srimati Radharani, taking the opportunity and observing the very similar features because of his liberation, Uddhava's liberation, had been awarded the Swarupa liberation, in other words, having the same bodily features as Krishna and same mannerisms as Krishna. Srimati Radharani and the Gopis were not pleased with what Krishna had done, and by leaving, and Radharani took the opportunity, because seeing a bee, to address the bee as if he were Uddhava, and of course the bee flew away, and she got freaked out. But the wonderful thing about this all this is on a transcendental plane. Even the separation, the anger, and the different emotions that we normally express in a material sense are perverted reflections of these transcendental emotions or rasas that mellows that the devotees of Krishna experiences. So in that way, there is no real separation from Krishna, and this was what Bhaktivedanta was explaining. And Uddhava started to relay this message to Krishna. We had left off that last time, so we're going to continue here. The cosmic manifestation is also not separate from Krishna. Nothing is separate from me. The whole cosmic manifestation is resting on me and is not separate from me. Before the creation, I was existing. This is confirmed in the Vedic literature. Before creation, there was only Narayan. There were no Brahma, no Shiva as assistants. The whole cosmic manifestation is manipulated by the three modes of material nature. Brahma is the incarnation of the quality of passion. It is said that Brahma created this universe, but Brahma is the second creator. The original creator is Narayan. This is also confirmed by Shankaracharya. Narayan para vakitat. Narayan is transcendental beyond this cosmic creation. Krishna creates, maintains, and annihilates the whole cosmic manifestation by expanding himself in different incarnations. Everything is Krishna and everything is depending on Krishna, but he is not perceived in the material energy. Material energy is called Maya, or illusion. So the desire of the living entity to be in controller, to be the enjoyer, to be Krishna. So when we say, the living entity is in the material world because they want to be God, a lot of times people will say, well, I don't want to be God. I just, I want this, this, and this. But, what does that mean? It means to actually be the enjoyer and controller. Everything that we do as a living entity, every individual is so self-centered and selfish. Everything is like, my house, my car, my job. This is my wife. I want this. We falsely identify with our material body, and we falsely identify with our attempt to find some kind of satisfaction through this material plane, which is a complete illusion. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, and we are the enjoyed living entities, jivatmas, temporarily in this material world, going from body to body. So this is called Maya, or not this, right? Maya, our illusion. This is the great illusion. People are like, oh yeah, where's God? God is some fantasy thing because we can't really see him. We can't see him because we have no faith, we have no desire to see. We want to be Krishna. Therefore, Krishna gives us the opportunity of putting that veil over our eyes until we've, fallen on our face enough times and realize, and start to think, is this all there is? Is there a God? And then when we cry out to Krishna, when we cry out to God, then the veil has started to be lifted, because Krishna gives us the opportunity. He knows our heart. The material body has developed on the basis of spiritual existence. In the Bhagavad Gita, I jumped ahead there. In the spiritual energy, however, Krishna is perceived at every step in all circumstances. This perfectional stage of understanding is present in the Gopis. As Krishna is always aloof from the cosmic manifestation, although it is completely dependent on him, so a living entity is also completely aloof from his material conditional life. The material body has developed on the basis of its spiritual existence. In the Bhagavad Gita, the whole cosmic manifestation is accepted as the mother of the living entities, and Krishna is the father. As the father impregnates the mother by injecting the living entity within the womb, so all the living entities are injected by Krishna in the womb of the material nature. They come out in different bodies according to their different fruitive activities. In all circumstances, the living entity is aloof from this material conditioned life. We're aloof from it, but yet we are so affected by it. This is the illusion. And this is also the reason why our attempt to find satisfaction in this material world will never be satisfied, because we are aloof. What we are enjoying through the material senses is never enjoyed by the living entity, unless, of course, it is something that is offered to Krishna. It is offered to, our service is offered to Krishna. And that is not the material energy that we are enjoying. It is actually the spiritual energy that the living entity experiences. If we simply study our own bodies, we can understand how a living entity is always aloof from this bodily engagement. Every action of the body is taking place by the interaction of the three modes of material nature. We can see at every moment many changes taking place in bodies, but the spirit soul is aloof from all changes. And there's also if you want to study about the three modes of material nature, I recommend in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a chapter about the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And it's a very, very deep subject. As we know, the material modes that are the energy that is created by Brahma, but is an energy of Krishna. As all the energies are Krishna's energies. They affect everything that we experience in this material world, and they have their place. They situate in every situation, whether it's like the food we eat, the music we listen to, the way we act, the way we feel, We have natural situations. We wake up in the morning, maybe we feel really good. We might go out, we see the sunrise, we go hiking, we have the mode of goodness. But then, the day starts, we have to go to work, and we go, and that the mode of passion kicks in. We have to work. And then naturally the mode of ignorance will kick in, and at a certain time in the day, maybe when we're really, really sleepy and we need a nap, or even, not naturally at the bedtime, the mode of ignorance will kick in so that we sleep, that our body will sleep. But there are so many aspects of how these material energies exist, and whether or not a living entity will engage heavily in those modes. And, if a person is engaging in a mode of ignorance, being very lethargic, doing drugs, depressed all the time, he's attracting that kind of mode of ignorance. And it gets very, very difficult to come out of that. Anybody who's been highly depressed or in that situation of like being under the influence of drugs knows that it's very difficult, and you actually have a mindset that's very ignorant, just like either like woe is me, and maybe it might be mixed with passion of anger about things, and it's a very self-centered kind of thing. But then maybe in a mode of goodness, the mode of goodness is also a material energy, but it's the best place to be at. Excuse me. We feel good, we take care of our bodies, we eat foods in the mode of goodness. We go hiking, we see this, sunrise, we get a lot of air, a lot of oxygen by going out and getting fresh air, or we go swimming or whatever. And these things, set our mind into more of a mode of goodness. When you're in a mode of goodness, then it's a launching point to practice spiritual life. And so this is why a lot of pre-meditative things like yoga asanas or tai chi or qigong or hiking in the forest, people think of it as like meditation. It's not really officially meditation on a spiritual level, but it is a pre-meditation. It makes us stay in a mode of goodness. And being in a mode of goodness, we can actually engage in the practices of meditation much easier. The hearing of Krishna's names, the practice of japa yoga, the study of scripture. If we're in the mode of goodness, our mind is there, we're peaceful, we're able to have more, as my spiritual master would say, have more insights, like the aha moments. Those things come more easily. That's why people go, great writers, great thinkers, who is that? Thoreau, he would go off to, incidentally also studied the Bhagavad Gita. He spent 2 years in a cabin and by nature. And nature, of course, naturally will make you feel more peaceful because it's nature, and generally you're in the mode of goodness. Although that's a whole nother thing too, because when you study the actual nature, it's like a lot of mode of passion and mode of ignorance, and other living entities fighting for survival. One living entity biting the head off of another ant or something, and that's happening all over nature. But we're just like, oh, this is beautiful. It's like this horror story going on underneath the ferns. So anyway, I digress here. So we go back to, so he says, we can see at every moment many changes taking place in bodies, but the spirit soul is aloof from all changes. One can neither create nor annihilate nor interfere with the actions of material nature. The living entity, therefore, is entrapped by the material body and is conditioned in 3 stages, namely while awake, asleep, and unconscious. The mind is acting through all the 3 conditions of life. The living entity in his sleeping or dreaming condition sees something as real. In his awake condition, he sees the same thing as unreal. It is concluded, therefore, that under certain circumstances he accepts something as real, and under other circumstances he accepts the very same thing as unreal. These matters are the subject matter of study for the empiric philosopher or the Shankha yogi. In order to come to the right conclusion, Shankha yogis undergo severe austerities and penances. They practice control of the senses and renunciation. And so this philosophy of Shankha Yoga, as truly set out by the devotee, the incarnation of Krishna, Kapila Dev. There is actually two Kapila Devs in the Vedic civilization. One came later, was an atheistic philosopher that supposedly taught Shankha Yoga, but actually the real teacher, the real Kapila Dev, is like, will the real Kapila Dev come out? Actually, Kapila Dev is his pastimes are in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's also a book by A.C. Bhaktivedanta about the teachings of Kapila Dev, and he taught Shankha Yoga. There's a little bit about Shankha Yoga in the Bhagavad Gita as well, chapter 6, and some other places as well, which are the study of the material elements and the controller of the spiritual energy, and the controller of who is the controller of all, that is Krishna. So it is something that actually goes way, way beyond the today's empiric science thought. So it's a very interesting subject to study. And so if you have a Srimad Bhagavatam, I'd recommend, or you can get that book, The Teachings of Kapila Dev by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. All these different ways of determining the ultimate goals of life are compared to rivers. Krishna is the ocean. As the rivers flow down towards the ocean, all attempts for knowledge flow towards Krishna. After many, many births of endeavor, when one actually comes to Krishna, he attains the perfectional stage. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, all are pursuing the path of realizing me, but those who have adopted courses without any bhakti find their endeavor very troublesome. So this is a reality. Everyone is looking for Krishna. Not everyone wants to admit that that's what they're looking for. The scientist, the philosopher, the atheist. They're all looking for Krishna. But as it says here, but those who have adopted courses without any bhakti find their endeavor very troublesome. It's true. It's very troublesome. There are many, many, many people in this world who are baffled by what the meaning of life is. And without coming to understanding, some very basic principles of the Shankha Yoga, of understanding what the difference is between material energy and spiritual energy, understanding who am I, that alone, from that first who am I concept of not being the body or the mind, but being spiritual in essence. Aham Brahmasmi, I'm spiritual. This is a radical concept, but very simple in the sadhana bhakti process. But many, many people don't understand that, and therefore they are baffled by trying to, speculate with their mind. That's the job of the philosopher. You have all these philosophers. They'll reject, anything but what they have to say. It's like Nietzsche or whatever. He rejected everything religious, but he was like, buy my book. I have the understanding. So philosophers, they're very puffed up, and they think, well, what I have to think with my mind is the absolute truth. But yet you look at the situation, and different philosophers are debating about, no, that's not right. This is what's right. And they just go round and round and round. And I remember this very much because even before I started chanting and before I started studying the Vedic literature, it used to be kind of fun to sort of spin around in your brain, but it also was exhausting, because you'd be like, well, what does it really mean? What does this all mean? And I had that. I wanted to know, so I started praying on it, and that's of course how I came to Krishna, introduced me to my Guru Dev, who taught me the truth, and it was like turning on the light, whereas everything else that I'd read was like just confusing me even more. But when my Guru Dev spoke, and he's teaching exactly what Bhaktivedanta here is teaching, it's just like turning the light on. That was it. It was all very clear. All are pursuing the path of realizing me, but those who have adopted courses without any bhakti find their endeavor very troublesome. Klesho dikash tarash tesham. Krishna cannot be understood unless one comes to the point of bhakti. 3 paths are enunciated in the Gita: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Those who are too addicted to fruitive activities are advised to perform actions which will bring them to bhakti. Those who are addicted to the frustration of empirical philosophy are also advised to realize bhakti. Karma Yoga is different from ordinary karma, and Jnana Yoga is different from jnana. Ultimately, as stated by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhakshya Mam Abhijananti. Only through execution of devotional service can one understand Krishna. The perfectional stage of devotional service was achieved by the Gopis because they did not care to know anything but Krishna. It is confirmed in the Vedas, Yashmin eva vijanate, Sharvam eva vijanatam bhavanti. This means that simply by knowing Krishna, all other knowledge is automatically acquired. A very important point right there. Just this is the goal of Krishna consciousness. The practice of sadhana bhakti enables so many different, there are different paths and different regulations, and they all go to Krishna. In the Vedas, you had so many different, you have the Ashtanga yoga, the different paths of things, and you can study all those things, but actually, as Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, one should just give up all these varieties of religious practices and surrender under Krishna. That's the very straightforward surrender to Krishna. When you know Krishna, all things are immediately applied. It's very similar in the practice of sadhana bhakti too. In being a devotee of Krishna, a lot of the things that help the planet are automatically applied. You stop eating meat, and eggs and fish, and those kind of things that destroy the planet. You live a much more simple life. You're kind and you're compassionate towards others, and you're not, you try to practice empathy and kindness and peace. These practices are really the ultimate goal of solving world problems, and it is all centered on Krishna. A person who engages in the service of Krishna will be the greatest friend to humanity. In other words, they will be automatically, without it having to do anything externally in the world, be applying these things that will help all these problems go away. Krishna continued, transcendental knowledge of the Absolute is no longer necessary for you. You were accustomed to love me from the very beginning of your lives. Knowledge of the Absolute Truth is specifically required for persons who want liberation from material existence. But one who has attained love for Krishna is already on the platform of liberation. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, anyone engaged in unalloyed devotional service is to be considered situated on the transcendental platform of liberation. So this is, there are these different aspects of material existence in the Vedas. There's economic development, there's sense desire, there's religiosity, and there's ultimately moksha, or liberation. Now, the practices of religious life and regulations is to regulate your sense desire. Although there will be some sense desire, it's regulated also. And the practice of economic development, making money, just making enough to basically survive and to do your service. And then this was seen in the Vedic tradition to ultimately, when you applied these things and these rules and regulations, that you would achieve a liberation from material, the nirvana, or the liberation from sense desire and sense in material existence. But beyond that moksha is bhakti. And this when you apply your devotional service to Krishna, all these things will automatically come about. So similarly, when you start chanting, it's, there are a lot of things that we don't do. We have 4 regulations. We don't eat meat, fish, or eggs. We don't engage in sexual promiscuity. We don't take drugs or alcohol, and we don't gamble. And there are a lot of different things that we will follow. But, you know, oftentimes when you start chanting, we just encourage you to just come, you know, come as you are, as they would say, you know. And a lot of times people come from all kinds of backgrounds. They're eating meat, they're having, you know, promiscuous sex, they're gambling, or whatever they're doing. They're drinking, or are eating, you know, a lot of meat, or smoking pot, or whatever they do. It's not like, oh, those things are bad. You're not going to be allowed to chant Krishna's names unless you stop all those things. It's like, no, you come and you chant. And the practice of hearing and chanting, of listening to Krishna Katha, of eating prasadam that's been offered to the Lord, of so many things that, you know, seeing pictures of Krishna and hearing the sadhus and the saints, past spiritual teachers, people talk about Krishna, is purifying, all purifying. It is spiritual energy that's directing directly to the living entity. And it is cleansing the heart of all the dust accumulated for years together, as Lord Chaitanya will say. The hearing and chanting is so powerful, Lord Chaitanya says, that even if a person hears the name of Krishna once, and even maybe doesn't repeat it or repeats it mockingly, they are of great fortune. They have achieved such a powerful benediction. What to say if you are continually hearing and chanting and continually engaging in these forms of meditation? They cleanse your heart, and so these things are already applied. The liberation is already there. You know, all these things start to play. You don't really want to eat meat anymore. You find, okay, I'm going to pull back from these things because I'd rather be doing these things with my meditation. You find that your taste for those things that you used to enjoy, they are waning because you find more attraction towards Krishna. It's very wonderful. Krishna can, okay, so let's see what time it is, 34, okay. But one who has attained love for Krishna is already on the platform of liberation. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, anyone engaged in unalloyed devotional service is to be considered situated on the transcendental platform of liberation. The gopis were not actually feeling any pangs of material existence, but they were feeling the separation of Krishna. Krishna therefore said, "My dear gopis, in order to increase your super excellent love for me, I have purposefully separated myself from you. I have done this so that you may be in constant meditation on me." The gopis are in the perfectional stage of meditation. The yogis are generally more fond of meditation than the execution of devotional service to the Lord. But they do not know that the perfectional stage of devotion is the attainment of the perfection of the yoga system. This constant meditation on Krishna by the gopis is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita to be the topmost yoga. Krishna knew very well the psychology of women. When a woman's beloved is away, she thinks of him meditatively, and he is present before her. Krishna wanted to teach through the behavior of the gopis. One who is constantly entranced like the gopis surely attains the lotus feet of Krishna. Lord Chaitanya taught people in general the method of vipralamba, which is the method of rendering service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the feeling of separation. The 6 Goswamis also taught worship of Krishna and the feeling of the gopis in separation. The prayers of Srinivasa Acharya about the Goswamis explain these matters very clearly. Srinivasa Acharya said that the Goswamis were always absorbed in the ocean of transcendental feelings in the mood of the gopis. When they lived in Vrindavan, they were searching for Krishna, crying, "Where is Krishna? Where are the gopis? Where are you, Srimati Radharani?" They never said, "We have now seen Radha and Krishna, and therefore our mission is fulfilled." Their mission remained always fulfilled. They never met Radha and Krishna. At the time of the Rasa dance, those gopis who could not join the Rasa Leela with Krishna gave up their bodies simply by thinking of him. Absorption in Krishna consciousness by feeling separation is thus the quickest method for attainment of the lotus feet of Krishna. By the personal statement of Krishna, the gopis were convinced about the strength of the feelings of separation. Ooh, a long chapter. They were actually experiencing the supernatural method of Krishna worship and were very much relieved and happy to understand it. They began to speak as follows: "We have heard that King Kamsa, who was always a source of trouble for the Yadu dynasty, has now been killed. This is good news for us. We hope, therefore, that the members of the Yadu dynasty are very happy in the association of Krishna, who can fulfill all the desires of his devotees. My dear Uddhava, kindly let us know whether Krishna sometimes thinks of us while in the midst of highly enlightened society girls in Mathura. We know that the women and the girls in Mathura are not village women. They are enlightened and beautiful. Their bashful, smiling glances and other feminine features must be very pleasing to Krishna. We know very well that Krishna is always fond of the behavior of beautiful women. It seems, therefore, that he has been entrapped by the women of Mathura. My dear Uddhava, will you kindly let us know if Krishna sometimes remembers us while he is in the midst of other women?" And so now the gopis are going to talk some more. So I'll leave that off for the next time because this is a very long chapter, but very wonderful as usual. You can take time every day to read the Krishna stories, or you can go back. I have a lot of videos. Actually, I said 40 or 50 before, but I think it's more like 80. I have a lot of chapters all the way from the beginning of this Krishna book. And you can go back and listen to the stories and enjoy and meditate upon the words. So thank you very much. I'm going to chant. Hari Bol. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you very much. Namaste.